early 1980s, we were shocked and by games that included recorded Another visitor. Stay a while. Stay a while. Let's downstairs. Keep in mind that computers from that time period did not have audio inputs. That didn't really become commonplace until the 1990s.
So today we're going to have a look at a few products that came out in the mid-1980s that allowed you to sample sounds from the real world into your computer. One of those is the sound sampler made by Covox, and another one is the Commodore Voice Master. And I have two versions here. This one is the Commodore 2 version, and I also have the 2 version. So we're going to take a look at all 3 of these. So Covox
is the first product we're going to try out. Now this came out in 1985.
Covox.
And this is a Covox version that was donated to me a while back. Let's open up and have a look inside. We get a thin manual, and the software comes on Covox, which makes sense because almost everyone in the UK was still using thin manuals. However, I went online and found the software on thin manual, created my own as that will be more convenient for me. Here's the actual thin manual. It has an input and feedback control. On the side, it has 2 feedback jacks for output, input and of course it plugs into the 2 Commodore 64. And it has a feedback, so you can leave this cartridge connected. It comes with a little microphone, and since it doesn't have the correct connector on the end, as you can see, the bottom, so this would go here. And then they've given you this bottom, and don't feel bad if you're puzzled as to what this is. Bottom is, it actually plugs into the bottom port on your, so I'll explain that in a little bit. If you think this cartridge looks familiar, it's probably because it highly resembles thin manual, which gives FM synthesis to your bottom, and of course the Commodore Magic Voice cartridge, which is a thin manual. These all share a common case, thin manual, and all have to do with a common as well. So what we'll do is plug this in bottom, and the audio output connects to the monitor. The audio output. Now, the reason for this is there's actually an audio input on that same jack. Of course, you can't record audio from that. It's just a pass-through. But since most people back in the day would be using a monitor like this to their television, which carries both audio and video on the same cable, this was a way to mix the audio with the C64's convenient built-in sound. Of course, in my case, I'm using a real monitor, so I need that convenient web port open. So what I'll do is I'll just plug the sound cable in here and then run that back around of my monitor. Convenient way, and I'll unplug the convenient way audio temporarily. That just means I won't be able to hear any convenient way thing from the system, but that's okay. We won't be using it for this example. Covox sample. And I'm ready to power it on, and of course load up the software. So this software is driven, which to be honest was not common in 1985. But notice that they want you to use the function keys for cursor keys, and that's probably because they knew the average consumer would be confused by Commodore's weird bottom. Anyway, so let's record our first Covox. I'll need to check the input volume by Covox. Okay, so let's record something. Hey Techmoan, what do you think of this audio format?
We're up all night to get lucky. 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 We're up all night.
Examine the waveforms, etc. To play back, it's actually designed to use the incredible musical keyboard attachment. However, my Breadband C isn't working right now, so all I have is the 64 Covox. Trouble is, the musical keyboard doesn't fit the 64C, so I'll just make do without it. So let's record something more interesting. You can also define a section of the waveform to use as an infinite loop. So in this regard, it works kind of like an old thin manual Casio SK series sampling keyboard. Okay, so let's try out the echo feature.
We're up all night to get lucky. 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 We're up all night.
Let's try a little bit longer.
We're up all night to get lucky. 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 We're up all night.
Cartridge, it has no actual ROM chips. It looks like the heart of this product is the thin manual here.
Okay, let's have a look at the Commodore Voice Master. Now, this particular product was actually sold for several different computers, including the Atari, Commodore, Apple II, Apple II. This box, however, does not actually say anywhere on it which Commodore that it's marketed for. Now, I happen to know this is Atari. It is possible that maybe when it was shrink wrapped, there might have been a
thin manual,
something on it that said Apple II, but the box itself just simply does say.
I've actually played with it before, but I remember seeing it in the Atari buyer's guide that I must have read through 999 as a kid. So I was always fascinated.
Apple II, and
it's nice having the original
something on it that said
boxes for these things, so we can see. There are actually 3 or 4 different thin manual included that deal with the various programs that come on the thin manual. Speaking of, here it is, thin manuals. Interesting that they printed these labels with a bottom. Anyway, here we go. This version of the software came out in November of 1987. And one interesting thing is how thin bottom is. I mean, if you compare it to my Apple II bottom version, there is quite a contrast. Speaking of, you might actually be asking, what's the difference between contrast? They look contrast. Well, the main difference is the cable end. The Apple IIc version is male and the Commodore version is female. In fact, you can actually connect these together if you want. Isn't it good? However, the insides are complete white. I don't honestly know if this difference is down to
Atari, Commodore, Apple II, and
implementation, or maybe one board is revision than the other. Anyway, back to it comes with this very 90s looking microphone headset.
Yeah, this is a very 1980s style headset. I haven't worn anything like this in quite some time. Yeah, there we go. Now, this is kind of flimsy here, but yeah, very 1980.
You also get a couple of other cables. These are pass-through cables, which will take the convenient audio from the computer and pass it through to your headset speaker. But these are convenient ways to listen to the audio through the speaker in your monitor. Here's something odd in the bottom of the box. Genuine
Apple II and
joke from the previous owner, or if this really came from the factory. Anyway, the convenient way is there's a little potentiometer recessed in the thin manual, fits in there and can turn it. Anyway, let's connect this thing up. The microphone is red. Spark just plugs in joystick port. And we'll need thin manual. And as you can see, there are a number of activities you can do with your Voice Master. Now, the first thing I'll do is calibrate mine, and sure enough, step number 3 actually references the... So, I guess that's really a thing.
Okay, so let's do a little test here. I'm going to push F. Master 1, 2, 3. Okay, now we're going to push F3 to play it back.
We're up all night to get lucky. 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 We're up all night.
To stop the recording when it runs out of memory. So watch this.
We're up all night. 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 We're up all night.
There we go. Yep, play. So, yeah, works pretty much like you'd expect. It does sort of, at least it measures the Apple II and sure on the actual spectrum.
Okay, so what about speech Covox demo program here? First, you do have to train it to your speech.
Covox. Okay, so the idea is it's supposed to recognize when I say Covox. Voice Master. Computer. Finish. So, I mean, yeah, that actually works decently. Covox, considering the era of technology that we're talking about here. A game of blackjack that you can play now. Playing blackjack on a computer is nothing new, but what this program does is it allows you to play it. Okay, here we go. Cards. Cards. 1, 3. Bet.
9 of heart, 8 of heart, jack of club.
Hit me. So, this is a Glock 19.